An orphan boy is dragged off the streets and turned into the subject of cruel experimentation. The scientists who take him have only one goal: to shape him into a living weapon. They wipe away his name and replace it with a number, Subject 17. For years, they inject him with cells taken from over 500 monsters, twisting his flesh and warping his bones until he no longer resembles anything even remotely human. By the time the experiments are done, his body is so mangled that the scientists consider him a failure, useless, disposable. But that was always the plan. When the gates of the demon realm tore open and monsters began flooding the world, humanity discovered a horrifying truth. Only a handful awakened as hunters, and even fewer were strong enough to stand on the front lines. They lacked numbers, they lacked power. So they turned to something darker. They began manufacturing chimera hunters, prisoners forcibly fused with monster cells, engineered in underground labs to fight and die in humanity's place. When Chimera number 17 is finally thrown into the demon realm, something happens that the scientists never predicted. He awakens. He cuts down monsters that even S-rank hunters fear. He tears through beasts, wipes out entire hordes, and crushes creatures that ordinary humans can't even look at without fainting. He does it all while destroying his own body in the process. From a distance, the hunters watching him are stunned. One chimera is doing the work of an entire army. But once his job is done, the hunters follow their orders. Do not bring Chimera number 17 back alive. They abandon him. All that remains of him is a single bone, left behind as proof of his death. But then the impossible happens. That lone bone floats into the air and begins to regenerate. Muscles coil, skin reforms, and within moments, Chimera number 17 is reborn, this time as a handsome young man with a sculpted physique straight out of a Divine Fitness commercial. Still in shock from his insane revival, he wonders if he's actually human again. But the monster cells inside him say otherwise, especially when his sharp talons flex effortlessly, as if inviting him to launch a fashion line for apex predators. No handlers from the lab come to retrieve him, no restraints, no commands. He realizes he's been abandoned like unwanted baggage. Then he notices something strange. The lab number that had been burned into his arm is gone. For the first time in his life, he thinks he may actually be free. He considers what kind of monster he might be now, perhaps an immortal type, one of those terrifying creatures that can resurrect 3 times unless their core is destroyed. It would explain why he's standing here with abs brighter than the sunset. What confuses him is that the scientists always insisted that human and immortal monster cells could never fuse. Yet here he is, reborn, fully conscious, and radiating a power that makes his old self look like a wet tissue. He remembers how his thoughts used to feel foggy, like someone had wrapped chains around his mind. Now that the haze is gone, his head feels clear, his will is his own. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to live like an actual human again. The name number 17 was never his anyway, just a label slapped onto an unwanted kid from the slums. He tries to recall his real name, but instead is pulled into a memory. An old scientist, gruff, cynical, but strangely gentle, once called him a lunatic with a rough personality, then told him to help people, to dedicate his life to saving 1,000 souls. Back then, deep in his edgy, rage-fueled era, number 17 couldn't even be bothered to reply. Returning to the present, he snorts. What trash advice. A kid born in the gutter is supposed to save anyone? Ridiculous. He gazes at the burning sky, the sunset lighting up his newly sculpted body like a divine spotlight. Revenge crosses his mind for a moment, but it feels distant now, old, dusty.
Revenge needs a target, and he no longer has one. Besides, there's no way back to the human world right now. He figures he'll meet those scientists again someday. When that day comes, the monsters should worry, not him. For now, he shoves aside the idea of revenge and focuses on what lies ahead.
Staring down at his newly regenerated, jaw-droppingly perfect body, conveniently covered by a divine glow that politely censors his more sensitive regions, Chaeyeon comes to a rare, wholesome conclusion. Maybe he should try living like an actual human being again, make up for all the years stolen from him. Try something new, like dignity. But as he strolls proudly across the landscape, one small problem hits him. He is very, very naked. He pauses, squints down thoughtfully, and decides he should probably find something to wear. But then a strange realization strikes him harder than any demon beast ever has. He cannot remember the last time he wore clothes, like ever. He tries to brainstorm fabric choices, but his brain offers nothing except static. So he defaults to caveman instincts and begins scanning the area for anything wearable. Eventually, something catches his eye. A large bird-like monster lies dead ahead, probably the loser of a turf war, or so he guesses, though there are no scars or wounds. That tells him it must have died from poison. Lucky for him, poison or not, the body is pristine, perfect for skinning. Channeling old muscle memory from the lab, he morphs his arm into a massive blade like he's about to butter some toast. He remembers the steps clearly. Start from the belly, then move to the limbs. So he makes the first incision. A puff of purple gas spills out immediately. Poison. He recognizes it instantly and inhales it like someone sniffing bad perfume at a mall kiosk. He's not bothered, just annoyed at the smell, since now he'll have to wash the hide. Eventually, he finishes skinning the giant turkey, and honestly, not a bad job for his first DIY clothing project. He heads to the river to wash the hide, but once he pulls it out, disappointment hits him. It has stiffened completely. It felt soft before. Now it's like monster cardboard. He figures it must be some weird property of the creature itself. Then a spark of genius, true divine barbarian enlightenment strikes him. He lays the hide flat and starts beating it senseless. Mid-punch, he wonders nervously if this is even how people tan leather, or if he's just destroying hours of work. But after enough therapy sessions, the hide becomes soft again. He beams proudly and lifts it, while crouching behind the bird corpse for modesty. He starts trimming and adjusting it into a wearable form, but before he can celebrate his new fashion career, a small flame flickers to life on the monster's head. The bird's eyes snap open. It stares directly at him. He quickly punches some holes into the hide, pulls it on, and ties a vine around his waist like he's prepping for a fantasy runway show. Fully suited up, he feels surprisingly satisfied with his outfit. There's still a bit of poison residue inside, but honestly, that's a problem for future Chaeyeon. The bird monster suddenly lets out a shrieking cry, far louder than its size suggests. Chaeyeon jumps, genuinely startled because he was so sure it was dead. It thrashes around weakly, and he swears it even understands his speech. Immortal type. That explains everything. He would have roasted it without hesitation, but now seeing it helpless and skinned, he figures there's no point being cruel. He smirks, tells the bird it got lucky today, and wishes it a second chance at life. As he walks away, he casually adds that if fate is feeling spicy, maybe they'll meet again. He continues exploring until he wanders into a cave, looking around like he's deciding between real estate options. Out of nowhere, a gigantic centipede lunges at him. He doesn't blink. He's more worried about whether the ambient lighting is good enough for a home. With a single clean strike, he decapitates the centipede as casually as someone swatting an annoying fly, then mentally crosses this location off the list. Next, he ends up wandering into a snowy mountain region. There, a yeti freezes on the spot, literally paralyzed with fear, like Chaeyeon just popped out from behind a corner yelling boo. Apparently, our boy has already thrown hands with the yetis here, but he rejects the location anyway. After rejecting the snowy mountains, Chaeyeon heads into a dense forest, but immediately regrets it. The mushrooms smell so horrifically rotten that it's like someone microwaved week-old fish in a cramped office break room. That alone is enough to nuke this place off his housing list. He keeps exploring. A creepy lizard cave? No thanks. A suspiciously cozy volcano? Tempting, but still a no. Nothing feels right. Then he arrives at the edge of a cliff. The view stuns him. Below stretches a landscape so breathtakingly beautiful that he has to blink twice to make sure he hasn't accidentally wandered back into the human world. Sunlight reflects off shimmering water, flowers sway in the breeze, and the sky glows in soft hues he's never seen before. He decides to scout the area by casually jumping off the cliff. He lands with a thud strong enough to snap a regular person's spine in 17 places. He dusts himself off like it was nothing and surveys the surroundings. Crystal clear water, healthy fish population, fresh air, flowers everywhere. Some monster fish even leap up trying to bite him, and he wonders for a second if they'd taste good roasted over an open fire, camping style. The more he looks around, the more perfect the spot becomes. A natural fish farm, perfect scenery, endless resources. He makes his decision. This will be his home. He'll build his house right here and name it the Chaeyeon Duan House, because branding matters, even in the demon realm. Meanwhile, somewhere far away in the demon realm, the air crackles. A portal rips open. Something metallic shoots out and crashes into the ground like an asteroid. A robotic figure rises from the smoke. He scans the surroundings and mutters, "So this is the demon realm?" Instead of panicking, he takes a moment to enjoy the scenery, breathing in the clean air, admiring the flowers, and concludes that this place is absolutely perfect for constructing Chaeyeon Duan's house. He immediately gets to work. Vine-like tendrils sprout from his fingertips, slicing through the forest in a single sweeping motion. Trees topple in seconds. Once the area is cleared, he sends the same vines to gather the logs, stacking them neatly as building material. Then he notices the uneven ground. Unacceptable. With precise movements, he scrapes, smooths, and levels the terrain, removing every stump and bump like he's preparing the land for a luxury real estate listing. By the time he's done, the clearing looks clean enough to host a Pinterest-worthy forest cabin. He sets the logs in place, plants the structural pillars, and starts building. That's when something strange happens. His body moves naturally, almost instinctively. For the first time, he realizes this must be what people mean by free will. He isn't following orders anymore. He's building something that belongs entirely to him. He lays the floor planks and decides to use snail-type monster mucus instead of nails, because apparently the stuff hardens into stone and doubles as waterproofing. Genius, really. When the structure stands tall, he drapes silkworm cocoon threads over the roof. Not only does it look aesthetically pleasing, but it also strengthens the house against monsters who might otherwise feel too bold. It's cozy now, almost complete, but something is missing. He thinks back to the lab days where they would show videos of ordinary human houses and realizes one thing: normal people always had pets or plants. There are no dogs in the demon realm, but he can grow something, so he decides to plant a garden. After brainstorming, inspiration hits him like lightning. Mandragoras. Perfect climate, perfect utility, perfect vibe. He hikes up toward the snowy mountain range nearby, remembering that mandragoras grow in places rich with mana and cold conditions. As he trudges through the snow, memories surface. The day he was kidnapped and thrown into the lab. Strangely enough, he now sees that moment as a twisted blessing. After becoming a chimera, he no longer fears the cold, no longer needs to worry about hunger, no longer breaks under miserable conditions. As the mana in the air thickens, he knows he's getting close. Sure enough, he spots the mandragora roots poking from the snowy ground. They look like tiny sunfish with leafy heads, and they're infamous for being absurdly sensitive to stress. Even the slightest environmental change can kill them. Knowing that, Chaeyeon figures it's smarter to take younger ones, more adaptable, less fragile.
He carefully selects 3, already bracing himself for the legendary Mandragora screams. But instead of piercing shrieks, he hears snoring. The first little mandra is completely asleep, snoozing like a baby. When he checks the other 2, they're the same, peacefully sleeping, one of them even mumbling nonsense in its sleep. That catches him off guard. Then it clicks. The screaming mandragoras were never natural. That was a lab-made horror. Humans grew them in low mana environments, surrounded by stress, fear, and forced harvesting. The screams were panic responses, desperation. Here, in the demon realm, rich with mana, none of that exists. Still, it's strange. They don't struggle. They don't try to escape, unless they recognize him. That wouldn't be shocking. His body contains mandragora cells after all. To them, he might feel less like a predator and more like a distant family member. Carefully, he tucks them into his waistband like leafy little passengers. Relieved they're calm, he starts thinking ahead. Maybe later he could politely ask them for a few root tendrils for tea, or even some fruit as a snack. Then he remembers mandragora fruit turns poisonous if harvested by force. Right, always ask nicely. He makes a mental note. That's when his senses pick up movement nearby. Hunters. He frowns. Climbing a dangerous snowy mountain like this isn't something anyone does casually. Curious and mildly interested in gate stones, he heads toward them. One of the hunters is loudly complaining, cursing his teammates for abandoning them as bait. The other snaps back, yelling at him to focus because something is charging straight at them. A wave of monster rabbits bursts from the snow. These aren't cute. Their mouths stretch open unnaturally wide, packed with writhing tentacles and jagged fangs. They leap forward with terrifying speed. One hunter barely manages to throw up a force field in time. The rabbits slam into it, screeching and clawing. The barrier holds, but only just. Cracks begin to spread, and the hunter's face drains of color. He starts wishing, desperately, that he'd just stuck to odd jobs instead of chasing bounty money. As the shield begins to shatter, panic takes over. He screams for help. Right then, the snow explodes. Chion drops from above with a landing that screams final boss introduction. The ground trembles, wind blasts outward, snow erupts into the air. Both hunters freeze. An actual person just appeared out of nowhere, half naked, calm, radiating pressure. The monster rabbits sense it instantly. They panic. Without a single command or attack, they scatter in all directions, fleeing like terrified rodents. In seconds, the battlefield is empty, leaving the 2 hunters staring in complete disbelief. B-class monsters ran away from a shirtless guy. They rush over, bowing repeatedly and thanking him. The 2 introduce themselves as Shangju and Kim Tae-hun, then ask for his name. When he answers, both of them blank. They've never heard a name like that before. Kim Tae-hun squints at him, muttering that maybe he's some kind of reclusive hunter, judging by the caveman meets apocalypse aesthetic. Chion smirks and flips the question. What are they doing wandering around a death trap like this when they don't even look stronger than D-class? The 2 exchange awkward glances before explaining. They're on a mission to capture a chimera alive for a very generous bounty. That instantly gets Chion's attention. One of them adds that the chimera escaped from a lab and jumped into a gate mid-chase. Relief washes over him. Good. They're not hunting him. He asks where their equipment is, why they're out here empty-handed, and whether they even have a gate stone. The answer is bitter. Their teammates took everything and ditched them. The betrayal was planned from the beginning. They just hadn't realized it until it was too late. And now they're stranded, hunted, and lucky to still be breathing. Chion listens quietly. A familiar story. Hearing all of this, our boy's gaze drifts, quietly, deliberately, to their gate. The hunters keep talking, voices growing more desperate by the second. They explain that their bodies are already suffering from mana contamination. Humans can only stay in the demon realm for a limited time before the mana overloads their systems. If they don't return soon to purify themselves, they'll die. Slowly, painfully. One of them finally cracks. He begs. He says he has a pregnant
wife waiting for him back home. But before he can even finish the sentence, something changes. Our boy suddenly freezes. It's subtle but unmistakable, like the air itself has shifted, like the universe just twitched. His eyes sharpen, and without warning, he launches himself into the air, vanishing in a shockwave of wind and snow, leaving the two hunters mid-monologue, hair and clothes whipping violently in his wake. Elsewhere, the robotic Chimera stands at the edge of a cliff. The same hunters who abandoned the others creep up behind it, weapons raised, ready for an ambush. The Chimera slowly turns, and in that motion alone, it makes one thing painfully clear. It intends to erase them from existence. When our boy arrives at the scene, his eyes widen slightly. For a split second, he wonders if he's too late. Blood stains the ground. Broken gear is scattered everywhere. At the cliff's edge, a flickering blue energy orb fades into nothingness. Looks like the hunters panicked and ran. They even left all their loot behind. As he examines the ground, he notices something odd. Footprints, a mix of child-sized steps and animal tracks. That confirms it. The test subject must have shifted forms mid-fight. He recalls what the hunter said earlier, a lab experiment made of liquid metal, able to freely alter its shape. The material was rare, so the scientists built it small and compact, child-sized, to conserve resources. Our boy peers down the cliff and barely manages to hold in a laugh. That mechanical little gremlin somehow wiped out 5 B-rank hunters. Impressive. Back with the battered duo, Kim desperately shakes Jiangzhu, begging him not to give up, but Jiangzhu coughs weakly, blood staining his lips. He says it's over. Mana contamination has spread through his entire body. He's done for. Kim refuses to accept it. He shouts about family, about survival, about not giving up. With the last of his strength, Jiangzhu quietly asks Kim to apologize to his family for him. Kim screams back that miracles exist and that he won't let him die. That's when footsteps approach. Kim instantly tenses, but it's not an enemy. It's our boy, casually walking back, carrying all their abandoned luggage like he just returned from grocery shopping. The moment Kim sees him, he snaps. He runs forward, drops to his knees, and practically starts praying, begging Chaeyeon to save them. Chaeyeon blinks, confused. Then it clicks. Right. He told them earlier he didn't have a gate stone. That's when Kim frantically pulls something from his pocket. 2 checks. Each is worth 10 million yen. He shoves them forward, begging, rambling that if they don't leave now, they'll die for sure. Chaeyeon stares at the checks, mentally trying to calculate the value. Useless here, but back in the human world, very useful. With all the generosity his chaotic heart can manage, he pulls out a gate stone. Kim immediately drops into a perfect 90-degree bow, thanking him over and over, swearing he'll never forget this kindness as long as he lives. He rushes back to Jiangzhu, shouting that they're getting out right now. Meanwhile, Chaeyeon casually examines the checks, wondering where to stash them. As the 2 hunters stagger toward the gate, Chaeyeon asks what gate stones go for these days. Kim answers, 1 million yen. Chaeyeon hums, says he feels like he got paid way too much. Then, without warning, he places a hand on Jiangzhu's shoulder and calmly says he'll give him some change instead. Kim freezes. His eyes widen in horror as he realizes what's happening. Mana is flowing directly from Chaeyeon to Jiangzhu. Kim screams for him to stop. Mana transfer between people is incredibly dangerous. If it destabilizes, both bodies could collapse on the spot. Kim panics, fully convinced this is the moment everything goes wrong. Then, Shangju suddenly jolts upright. It's like someone hit a reset button. The demonic energy flooding his body vanishes completely, purified down to the last trace. His breathing steadies, his eyes are clear, strength returns to his limbs as if the contamination was never there at all. For a second, he just stares at Kim. Then he grabs him in a tight, shaking hug, tears streaming down his face. Kim stands there frozen, arms half raised, brain completely short-circuiting as he tries to process the fact that his friend just came back from the brink of death. Chaeyeon doesn't wait for thanks. He turns around and starts walking away. Behind him, Xiang-ju shouts that he'll never forget this favor for as long as he lives. Kim can only stare at Chaeyeon's back, still stunned, still trying and failing to figure out who this guy even is. Chaeyeon heads home. He pauses outside his house for a moment, senses spread wide. No intruders, no threats. He exhales quietly, relieved. That's when the mandragoras begin to wake up. Their leafy heads droop. Their expressions look sad, exhausted, unhealthy. Instant red flag. Chaeyeon immediately gets to work, planting them carefully into the soil he prepared earlier. Once they're settled, he steps back and studies them. They still look miserable. He frowns. Maybe it's shock from being uprooted, or maybe they're hungry. He decides to test the second theory. Chaeyeon injects a small amount of his mana directly into the soil. The reaction is immediate. The mandragoras perk up like they just downed a triple-shot espresso. Leaves lift, color returns. One of them even wiggles happily. Chaeyeon smiles, quietly pleased. While chatting to his leafy new roommates, he senses a presence behind him. He doesn't turn around. He already has a pretty good guess. It's probably the mechanical creature those hunters were chasing. Weirdly, it followed him all the way here, but for now, he ignores it. He stashes the money safely and starts sorting through the loot bags. Jackpot. Spare clothes, sleeping bags, cooking gear, and then his eyes light up. Ramen. The last time he ate that was back at the orphanage. The nostalgia hits him hard, right in the chest. Hungry and suddenly emotional, he decides to cook it immediately. He follows the instructions as best he can, then heads to the lake for water, only to realize he has absolutely no idea how much he's supposed to use. Before he can overthink it, sharp-toothed fish leap out of the water trying to take a bite out of him. Problem solved. Remembering how people usually toss random stuff into ramen anyway, he flicks his fingers and effortlessly pulls the soul out of one unlucky fish. Next, he scavenges for extra ingredients. Eggs? He finds some strange capsule-shaped ones and shrugs. Close enough. Green onions? None in sight. He settles for fresh tree leaves instead. Same color, same vibes. Everything goes into the pot. Good enough. That's when the mechanical creature finally steps into view, holding its stomach dramatically while staring at the pot like it hasn't eaten in years. Chaeyeon lights the fire. The instructions don't say when to add the fish, so he just throws everything in at once. As the smell rises from the pot, the mandragoras immediately start gagging. Leaves curl, faces twist in disgust. Chaeyeon pauses, sniffing the air. Does ramen always smell like this? The scent drifts toward the mechanical creature. It starts swaying, entranced, pulled in by the concept of food. Slowly, it floats closer, then suddenly transforms into a puppy. It remembers something from the lab. Humans love dogs. So it commits. It limps toward Chaeyeon, fake whimpering, eyes big and pitiful, clearly fishing for sympathy. Chaeyeon watches the entire performance with a completely deadpan expression. Not impressed, not surprised. The injury is obviously staged. The act is clumsy. He figures it's young, naive, still learning. He even wonders how something this clueless managed to escape the lab and survive the demon realm alone. Still, he plays along. Casually, he asks if he wants some ramen. The puppy starts drooling instantly. Right in front of them is a bubbling death brew of random nonsense that could probably kill a grown man, but neither of them hesitates. They both take a bite. The puppy freezes mid-chew. Its tiny brain desperately tries to process the flavor. The moment Chaeyeon takes a bite, his mind detonates in light. Not from flavor, from memory. He's flashbanged straight back to hot pot nights at the orphanage. Steam rising, noisy chatter, cheap ingredients stretched too far but somehow still perfect. The nostalgia hits so hard it overrides the catastrophic taste currently assaulting his tongue. He smiles. It tastes just like back then. He declares it delicious with full confidence.